This is my sketch illustration of Finnick the Fox from Zootopia, and today I'll guide you through all the steps so that you could draw this yourself. So grab a pencil and paper and let's get started. Welcome back everyone, and thanks for joining me today. For today's lesson, I'm going to be drawing with a standard 2B pencil. Now you can use a mechanical pencil if you like, or anything that you have around the house that you're most comfortable with. Now with the sketch portrait, we're going to be turning the character over towards the right side. So let's start by placing the head along the bottom right side of our page. Now to begin, we're going to start with some guidelines. Let's start at the top of our page over on the right side. So I'm going to start by drawing a line coming down towards the bottom, just using these short lines. And then along the bottom, we're going to draw another line going across from left to right. Now we're going to use these two lines to help us create an oval along the bottom of our page. So from that center point, let's move up to right about here. Just going to mark this off. Let's measure that same distance down towards the bottom. Mark that off. Now I want to do the same thing across this horizontal line, but we're going to go wider. So we're going to start by lining this up, stepping out further on the left, and then taking that same distance towards the right side. Now I want to connect the center point of each mark with a curve to create our oval. So we're going to start along the top going out towards the left. Now this oval doesn't have to be perfect. We're just using this as a rough guide. So just go back and smooth this out as best we can. Now from here, we're going to go to the center. We're going to draw a straight angle line going all the way up and then out toward the left, towards the tip of the ear. Now this character has super long ears. So we go all the way up and out with a straight line. Now we're going to go over towards the right, going up. Now this ear is going to appear a little bit shorter because the head is turned. So we're just going to bring that up to right about there. Now from here, we're going to start blocking out the basic shape and composition of our drawing. So let's start by adding some thickness to the ear. From the top, we're just going to bend this in and then pull that down towards the top of the head. Let's go back up to the top. We're going to angle this down and in. And we're going to gradually bend this in towards the left side of our oval, right in the middle. Let's add some volume to the right ear. Starting from the top of our head, bend this up, out towards the tip, bend this down, and then in. We're also going to give the head a slight tilt. So from the right side, we're just going to angle this up and then across with a straight line. Let's add a little bit of volume to the body. On the left side, draw a straight line coming down the back. Move over on the right side of the center line, angle this over towards the right. Now that we've blocked out the basic proportions, let's start adding a little bit more detail. We're going to start with the head tilted over towards the right side. So I'm going to take that center point along the top and bottom. I'm just going to connect it with a curve going out and then back in. So the center seam of the head is now along this curve. Now right here where this curve meets that angled line, I'm just going to mark that off. Let's bend the muzzle coming down and across. So again, we're just pushing the muzzle over towards the right and the center of the face. And then here we're going to draw a small oval for the tip of the nose. Now we're going to wrap an oval in behind the nose, starting from the top, going over toward the left, come around towards the bottom. And now we want to pull this up towards the right side of the nose. Now from that center point, we're going to move out and draw two straight lines going up across the brow towards the top. Let's follow this line over to here and draw the bottom of the eye, going down and then up underneath, almost like a half oval. Now over on the right side, we're going to step out, goes down and in behind the nose. Along the top of this line, step down, draw a straight line going across the eyelid. Do the same thing on the right. Now I want to have the character looking towards us. So in the center of the left eye, we're going to tuck the iris and pupil underneath the eyelid. Trace that along the inside. And over on the right side, we're just going to pull this in towards the inside. So starting from the center of the eyelid, goes in behind the edge of the muzzle, and trace that along the inside. Now from here, we want to add a little bit more shape to the right side of the face. Because it's tilted over, we see a little bit more of the cheek. So from the edge of the eye, we're going to step over, goes out, and then down, round out the cheek, and then pull that in. Let's pull this up and then in towards the top of the head. Let's add a little bit more shape to the left cheek. We're just going to sag this down, round out the cheek, and then pull that back in underneath the head. Now once we're happy with the general proportions, we can go back in and clean this up by erasing some of these guidelines. Now once we clean up our drawing, I'm going to go back and just use this rough sketch as a guide to help us layer on some more details and refine the shapes. Now I would like to start back at the nose, start by rounding out the top, and again just modifying the shape just slightly, using that oval as a guide. So just want to pull this down a little bit lower in the middle, and then over on the left side I'm going to add that little bevel that goes across and then in. I'm going to separate the center of the nose with a slight curve in the middle, and then on the sides I'm just going to add the nostrils coming in and out. Darken up the inside of the nostrils. Now from the nose, just going to work our way across the top of the muzzle. And then right here, we want to add a fold coming down. Let's go back over towards the right side of the nose, coming down across the chin, and then in towards the neck. And then we're going to add that mouth, starting at the bottom of the nose in the center. Just going to add that center point coming down. Around the mouth, pulling this up towards the left, and we're just going to bend this down towards the corner of the mouth. And from here, it's going to work our way across the brow, going up, and we can readjust the distance of the brow. Pulling that in. Now with the eyebrow, we're just going to lightly shade that in. Just darken up the edge of the iris and the pupil. Now over on the left side, I'm going to draw a small circle for highlight. And I'm just going to lightly shade the inside of the pupil. Now with the right eyebrow, we're just going to dip this down across the eyelid, up, and then out. And it looks like we're going to readjust the placement of the eye. We're probably going to bring this in a bit closer. And just shading the inside of the eyebrow. And then you can see I'm just going to pull this in. Just drawing that same shape. Going across and then in. And then I'm going to go back and just erase the old eye underneath. And then redraw the iris and pupil. Let's add that highlight on the top, left side, and just darken up the pupil. And then again, at this stage, we can just step back and take a look at our proportions, make sure that everything is correct. And then along the side of the cheek, I'm just going to add a soft texture of fur, going around and start to bend this in towards the chin. Let's go across the top of the brow, going up towards the top of the head. Also doing the same thing on the right. Now we're going to continue adding that soft texture fur along the outside of the ears, starting from the bottom left and just working our way up. Just going to soften that up toward the top and just work our way along the inside. Now right here we're going to add that fold across the inside of the ear. So we're going to start from the tip. Just going to lightly work our way across and then down towards the top of the head. And also going to add a small fold across the bottom. Now I want to go back and do another cleanup before we get into the details and shading. And now we're going to go back and start adding some contrast. So starting back at the nose again. And we're just tracing out our contours first. And again, we can modify the shape or size at any point right here. Also going to add some contrast by darkening up the inside of the nostrils. And you can also see that I'm applying some thick and thin lines. So some thick lines across the center of each curve, blending this out towards a point on the ends. Also the side edge of the muzzle coming down and then in towards the chin. Also adding some texture inside the eyebrows. From the bottom, I'm just going to brush this over and across towards the outside. Just lightly shade the inside and bottom. You see that I added a thick edge along the top of the eyelid and just tapering that down towards the inside. Also going to add a light shadow just along the bottom edge, and then just define the outside of the iris and pupil. I'm going to move to the side edge of my pencil and just lightly shade the top of the eyelid in between the eyebrow and the eye. Also adding a light shade to the inside of the iris and then fading that down. And this will create a little bit of a glare across the bottom. I'm also going to shade in the nose, starting darker across the bottom and then fading that up. Now we're just going to define the edge of the fur, going dark along the outside and just fading that in. Now if you just pull some of that fur a little bit closer towards the inside of the face, just to add a little bit more texture. We can also roughly shade in the jacket. We're going to apply that same treatment to the outside of the ears. So again, just pulling some of that texture in and just blending that out towards the tip. Just going to blend this into the top of the head. Just going to feather this out, soften up the edge of the head. Just go back and add the edge of fur on the inside of that trim and fold. Now in the middle of the ear, we're going to have some longer fur coming from the inside going out. So just going to brush this from the base going up and then out. Just these long lines. And we'll do the same thing on the right side. I'm just going to use the side edge of my pencil just to add a little more softness to that fur. And also adding some shadow and tones to the face. So we're going to start in between the brow. Just going to brush this fur going around and then fading that out. From the top, let's bring this down and in. And also from the side of the cheeks, brushing this in towards the face and cheeks. Now once we have the base layer of shadow and tones in, we can go back in with the tip of our pencil and just add that fine texture inside. So just brushing that fur, going across. Now as I get closer to the end, I'm just going to tighten my details and shadows and always be sure to sign my artwork. And that's pretty much it. There's a sketch illustration of Finnick from Zootopia. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. If you did, please be sure to subscribe because I'm posting new lessons every single day. And I encourage you to check out our other sketch channels for more advanced tutorials. I want to thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.